G'day, guys. Welcome back to the Rugby League Guru podcast. Going to go through our rapid review for round 16, brought to you by the Roo Crew, the Rugby League Guru Patreon. An absolute heap of content in there every single week. All the stuff that you listen to on the podcast, you can get all the videos in there a couple of hours before, normally about 24 hours before. So come in there, join the Roo Crew. We're having conversations in there during games. We've got live chats that are going during games now. We've got a Supercoach chat in there, which I'm chiming in and out of, and the community is just sorting themselves out, going through their options and everything like that. So a fantastic community out in there in the Roo Crew. So come and join us. The link is in the description. Now, bad news for me, great news for you. This is actually the second time I'm recording the Rapid Review on Sunday afternoon. Shout out to me being one of the great dickheads of all time. Recorded the 40-minute episode, looked down and realised I hadn't pressed record. So good times, great times to be alive. It is Sunday afternoon at about 3:20 p.m. or so. So we haven't actually had the last game kick off. So it will be focused on the first few games of the week today. And of course, the under-19s origin as well, as I double-check to make sure we are recording this time, because I almost burst into tears 45 seconds ago. But you don't have to sit through that. So let's get stuck into. Let's start with the CBA Bowl, the under-19s from the other night. Obviously, the women's game, they absolutely gave it to them, New South Wales, which was great to see. And I'll be perfectly honest with you, this is when I was arriving at the stadium. I was talking to people from the NRL, sorting out tickets and all that sort of stuff. So I actually didn't get to watch this game as closely as I would have liked. Thankfully, the New South Wales girls put on a bit of a score, so it wasn't a real hyper-focused sort of game. But I thought Casey Ray, the halfback, she was fantastic. I thought Indy Bostock as well on the wing. She ran past me at one point, was absolutely flying. So I would have liked to have got to watch more of the women's this game if I could have. My hands were sort of tied there, and I haven't quite had time to go back and sit back and watch either of the CBA bowls, to be completely honest with you. But I thought the halfback, Casey Ray, was a standout. I thought McEwen in the second row, very solid as well. So some very talented young ladies doing the damn thing for the Blues. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't, because the Blues won by so much, I didn't even get to watch too many of the Queensland girls. So apologies for that, guys. But once again, if you want to go and check out a really deep review of that stuff, go check out the short ball. Jacob, we had him in here the other day for our preview. Fantastic young fella who is very, very passionate about his junior rugby league. So as much as you get all my could be anything stuff, go and check out the short ball as well, because he is doing tremendous things. Let's move to the men's game. And I got to watch this one a little bit closer. But once again, I was talking to people and moving around and whatnot, so it was tough to sort of watch it in too much depth. But Chevy Stewart, we spoke about him in the pre-game, how this was a bit of a redemption game for Chevy, and my God, it certainly was. I've spoken about Chevy a million over the last year or so, and he came into this game last year. I wrapped him galore, and I'll be honest with you, he was very underwhelming. I was pretty disappointed in Chevy's performance. Came back in this game, was the best on the park, so you love to see it. I was surprised that he was named in this game, but then I sat back and thought about it and went, you know what, I reckon Ricky Shaw and the Raiders are sending a bit of a challenge to Chevy to see what he's made of and see if he can redeem himself here. And my God, he did. Kick some goals. He was fantastic, Chevy. Obviously, Jesse McLean, he got injured early in this one, which was shit to see. But I'll tell you what, I don't know what the chat was during the commentary, but the chase that he put on to put himself in that position to get knocked out was off its fucking head. He is lightning quick, Jesse. Him and Casey, both very good. But the injury, or the HIA to Jesse, actually gave Connor Vitano an opportunity, and there was part of me that kind of enjoyed that, because I know how good Jesse is. We all know how good Jesse is. We know he's a star of the future. He could win a comp this time next year. He's probably only one injury away from potentially winning a premiership this year. Connor Vitano from the Knights, I was very happy to see him get his opportunity. I thought he took it with two hands, was very solid. Matty Arthur scored a try. Chevy put him over for one. I thought he was great. Just on the hill next to us was his old man, Brad Arthur, watching, so it was great to watch his emotions and whatnot throughout the game. A couple of other New South Wales Blues that stood out for me that I want to give a little rap to. The first one is, well, the two front rowers, Pacifica Tonga, who I believe is from the Dragons, very talented. I also love Seve from the Canterbury Bulldogs. This was a big takeaway for me, how well set up the Bulldogs are heading into the future. I thought that my boy Noah Martin, we tipped him for an MOM performance. Obviously, Chevy deserved that 100%, but I would have had Noah not too far off there. Very, very good player, Noah Martin, and one that the Raiders should be excited about. I think he really fits in with their culture down there as well. And Cody Hopwood, who came in, I believe he plays for the Dragons. He came in late to this game because of not the injury, because Blake Steep was taken out of the side. He was very solid as well. The halfback, Mitch Woods, some of the kicks he put in were genuinely off his fucking head. They were unbelievable. Neither of them led to tries. They're two of the best kicks I've ever seen to not lead to tries. Very, very impressive Mitch Woods. And I think the Canterbury Bulldogs, they find themselves in a very good spot with guys like Seve and Woods coming through the grades. They're in a good spot at the moment. They probably are just a bit of polish short in the halves. And I don't know, I feel like Mitch Woods, I think he's going to come into first grade and fit in very, very well. So keep an eye on him over the next few years. He can obviously still play this game next year. He is a year young, so I wouldn't be surprised if you see him debut for Canterbury, maybe back into this season, more likely next year. But I reckon by 2025, he probably could be the starting halfback for the Canterbury Bulldogs. So one to watch there. For the Maroons, I thought Israel Leota was very good, watching him up close. He is just all power. Tyrese Tate was solid, scored a meat pie. Kobe Black, watching his kicking game live for the first time, very, very impressive. I thought Mitch Woods was probably the better halfback on the field, but I thought Kobe Black was very good. The hooker, I hadn't really seen much of him before, very solid. Zach Garton on the edge as well. I like the look of him. So if I'm being completely honest with you guys, I probably did watch the New South Wales side a little bit closer because they're guys that I watch, week in, week out over the last few years, and Harold Matts and SG Bull and all that. But a lot of positives to take out of this. And for me, the biggest positive of all was this number, 5,268. Shout out to all of you that got out to the New South Wales and Queensland under-19s, the CBA Bowl. For a cold night, Leichhardt Oval on a Thursday night, so fucking impressive to get 5,000 people. And I'm really passionate about this sort of stuff, as you guys would have seen over the last week or so. I'm sure some of you probably would have thought it was overkill, but I think this is really, really important for our game. And I think it was great to see so many people get out there for this one. So shout out to you, and shout out to everyone from the Roo crew or just Guru fans that I got to meet out there. Had a really fantastic night meeting you all, having photos, having yarns, bit of banter, doing Supercoach sides and everything. It was unreal. And shout out to the NRL for getting me involved with that as well. It was a lot of fun and some really fantastic people that I got to work with at the NRL in the lead up to it. All right. Let's get stuck into the round that was. Only the 4 games. We obviously don't have the Tigers and the Canberra Raiders game, our review, because we are recording before that, just time-wise, a little bit easier. But the Melbourne Storm, 30 points to 24 over the Finns. For the Melbourne Storm, I thought Jerome Hughes was sensational. It is crazy to think where this guy could have been if he would have started his career as a halfback in the Melbourne Storm system as a young age. Sort of bumped around a little bit. I think he was at the Titans, maybe at the Cowboys for a period of time as well. I think he played up there at the Brisbane Tigers potentially too, and then to land in Melbourne. And I know he was the halfback over Brodie Croft, but he was realistically still filling the shoes of Cooper Cronk. And when you think about, you got Cooper Cronk, methodical, almost robotic in how he is as his halfback play, to probably the most traditional halfback we've ever seen, to Jerome Hughes, a fullback learning to play halfback. And when you look at these performances and what he's capable of doing now, just unbelievable. So shout out to Jerome Hughes. I thought that his ball playing on the Josh King try was just tremendous. To address that Isaiah, I think it was Cody Nikorima had shot up in front of him, and he just summed it all up in a split second. Just really, really good, really experienced ball playing in that moment. His kicking game was tremendous as well. Pappy scored the first try for the Storm. And look, he was a little bit quiet after that, but I think if you go back and watch the tape, Pappy was involved. Like, he was always there. The ball just didn't find him. And sometimes you have these games, and I think that when we've seen Pappy come back from injury previously, he's been a little bit hesitant. And I think he was a little bit in this game. I think he'll warm into it now, and he'll be just fine. Because if you go and just rewatch that game and just watch Pappy, he's always on the screen. He's always putting himself in the right spots. Just the ball didn't find him in this one. Wishart was tremendous. When they're full strength, I think he has to be the 14. Such a good clubman to have. The Brick came up with some mixed plays, as he tends to do, Will Warbrick, but he did do some amazing things. I want to give Eli Katoa a shout out, and I mentioned him in the Roo crew the other day, but I walked away from this game and thought, Eli Katoa was a little bit quiet. 12 runs, 120 metres, 65 post-contact, and he made 40 tackles and only missed the 2. So if that's a quiet game from Eli Katoa, I will take that every day of the week. Shout out to him. Suafalonga came on late and was very impressive. The other guy I want to give a shout out to is Jack Howarth. Craig Bellamy obviously knows better than me, and there's no doubting that whatsoever. But I think he probably stays in this side at centre. I think I'd be finding a spot for Jack Howarth. Big body. He broke like 8 or 9 tackles in this game. He broke 8 tackles. He ran for 165 metres. And came up with good plays at the right time. So, yeah, I'd be keeping him in this side somewhere, Jack Howarth, whether it's off the bench, maybe jersey 17, might be perfect. But I also thought centre was really good for him. Great to see Nas start this game, play a couple of more minutes than what he usually does. I think he's going to be more and more important to this side as the season goes on. Outside of that, not a heap to touch on. Nick Meaney, Defensively, I think he escapes a lot of criticism, Nick Meaney. You have a look at this game. Made 13 tackles. He missed 7. They really picked him out as a spot defender in this game. So just a little situation to watch out for there. I think this has been a thing for quite some time, to be fair, but I feel like it was really highlighted in this game. For the Finn, shit was stacked against them very early, to be fair. Losing Jack Bostock, I think Wayne Bennett said post-game that losing a winger is just about the hardest thing to replace in the game at the moment, and I get where he's coming from. And that's a team like the Dolphins as well that is probably better placed than most sides with a Ewan Aitken in their side to be able to cover this. And Ewan Aitken did a great job, but fuck, it just stretches you very, very thin. They had a guy like Tavita Pangai Jr. who came back in and played his first game. I thought he was pretty good, to be fair. I know he got put on report and he flew up and made that shot when he was offside and everything. And Tavita's going to give you that sort of stuff, but I thought he came out with a couple of key offloads. Thought he was pretty good in his carries. He probably ended up playing more minutes than he expected because of the Jack Bostock injury. I said it when he signed. I think Wayne Bennett will get some good stuff out of him this year. I think he'll have a very limited role, but I think he will get some good stuff out of him this year. And there will still be brain explosions and errors. There's no denying that. It's Tavita Pangai Jr. This is what you sign up for. But I think that there is also a lot of upside in him, and I think Wayne will get maybe not the absolute very best out of him, but I think he'll get good enough out of him to make this worthwhile over the next few weeks. Trey Fuller, very solid. Osako got through his work. Herbie Farmer, sort of all over the place, changing sides and whatnot to help cover that injury. The halves are good without being great. But yeah, I just saw at the back end of the game, the key moments, I probably didn't grab them as well as what I would have hoped. JMK was solid. Connolly Lemuelu, very, very good. I thought he got very close to winning this game for them. Ewan Aitken, a good game, playing out of position. I thought Max Plath, 70 minutes through the hey diddle. Again, he will play for Queensland over the next few years, and he's going to shit me to no end. I can already see it playing out. But fuck, he's a good footballer. So yeah, look, the Dolphins, not ideal how it all played out and whatnot. Obviously, they lost a player early. They had Tavita Pangai Jr. playing his first game as well against the Melbourne Storm, a top 4 side, a bona fide top 4 side. To lose by 6 points, life could be much, much worse for the Dolphins. So I'm really not reading into this one too heavily. I think the Dolphins are still the real deal this year. Let's move to Super Saturday. And this first game, the Titans, I mean, who would have possibly seen this coming? On about even this week, Tommy Birmingham's bet was the Warriors minus 4.5. And when he took that, I said, fuck, Titans, 3 p.m. on the Gold Coast. You're playing with fire there. I thought the Titans were a sniff to get home in a tight one. To win 66 points to 6, shout out to the devil. I'd know he'd be listening. Unbelievable. I can't believe how this played out. And look, for the Titans, I could go through every single player and read their stats and tell you how good they all were. They all played incredibly well. There was no poor performances. I thought Jaden Campbell was the standout, though. He was amazing, just popping up everywhere. He kicked 11 from 11 goals. Hearing rumours he might have hurt a hand in this game, so we'll see what happens there. But I thought he was great. Jaden Gamble, Keanu Kearney just keeps doing the damn thing. He was tremendous. Sam Verrill's solid. Lofi Campiera scoring 4 tries. Fantastic. Look, it was just a good all-round performance from the Gold Coast Titans. And you know what? Like sometimes, you know, you sit there and say, oh, the Warriors just played shit. And sure, the Warriors didn't play well, but you don't just wake up one day and score 66 points in the NRL, and Warriors don't just wake up and they're a dreadful footy team all of a sudden. This is a side, like, I'll just read you out the Warriors team. Like, there was plenty of footballers in here. On paper, I think you'd probably take the Warriors side, realistically. Chance, Roger Tuivasa-Sheck, Montoya, Tomato Martin, Sean Johnson, Adam Fanua-Blake, Wade Egan, Jackson Ford, Nair Corey, Dylan Walker, Tohu Harris. I mean, that's a fucking good football side. The Titans didn't play a dreadful team. They played really, really well. They put them under constant pressure, and they took every opportunity they probably could. And if the Titans play like that every single week, they're going to compete in this competition. So as much as I'm not going to go through every single player for the Titans, they all deserve a lot of credit. They were fantastic, and this wasn't just the Warriors played shit. The Titans played bloody well, and they played smart footy, and they played tough footy as well, which you love to see. So shout out to all the Titans. I thought Dave Fafita only played the 70 minutes, got through a heap of work, especially early, really went after it. I thought Beau Fermor was fantastic. Probably won't get spoken about as much as other guys coming out of this game, but he was tremendous. Aaron Clark, very, very good. The centers, Kelly, Phil Sami, just all had very solid games. For me, the big talking point out of this game, and this sucks for Titans fan because I hate that we're having this conversation, but where does AJ Brimson fit? I guess he has to go back to centre because it's amazing. The start of the year, we're going Jaden Campbell or AJ Brimson, which one? We're now at round 17 next week, and I'm going, well, Keeney has to be the fullback. You got to fit the other two somewhere else. It's wild what's happening up there. And it's great when you have days like this. It's fantastic, but I wonder if they're going to start to get in the way of each other. But mate, full credit to Kano Keeney. He's just taken every fucking opportunity that's been given to him, and he's absolutely killing it. So, Kieran Foran. His defense was off its head. This guy's Benjamin Button. He's just not getting older. He's only getting younger, Kieran Foran. Some of the tackles that he put on Dylan Walker in this game, they were tremendous. So shout out to Foz. I thought he was incredible. In a high-scoring game that had all the highlights in the world, it was his defense that stood out for me on a number of occasions. So shout out to the Titans doing the damn thing, absolutely giving it to a side that a lot of people, when I said they'd missed the 8 at the start of the year, gave it to me and said, you're crazy, they won't miss the top 4. It's wild. Let's get on to the Warriors. A team that in the preseason I said my hot take is they'll miss the 8. Got ridiculed, copped it left, right, and centre. I watched them play the first 3 weeks. They didn't win a game, but they were very, very impressive. And I thought, nope, I've got this wrong. This is a side that is playing well enough to be winning a lot of games despite them not winning. When they do start to win, wins will just fall all over the place. And I am in more of a tailspin than I ever have been with the New Zealand Warriors. Fuck, they are a hard team to work out. And this game, I'm not going to talk about it too heavily, and I'm not going to go into individuals because personally, I think the Warriors, this is a game that you dig a hole in the backyard, you bury the tape, you move on to the next. But yeah, a lot of very disappointing performances by a lot of their players. And I know a big talking point out of this game will be the Roger Tuivasa-Sheck sin bin. Should it have been a sin bin? No, it shouldn't have. But honestly, if you're a Warriors fan and that's your biggest concern, you've missed the mark by so fucking far. It's not even funny. This team needs to turn this around next week. I'm not sure who they're playing next week, the Wires. Let's have a quick look. I believe it's back in New Zealand, which they desperately need. The Broncos. 3 p.m. next Saturday, potentially getting Reece Walsh back and whatnot. Payne Hart. Well, it'll be interesting to see if those boys back up. A trip to New Zealand's probably a big ask for those Origin boys, but we'll see what happens there. But the Warriors, they need a desperate bounce back next week. Once again, I'm not going to go into too much depth. They all played terribly. All of them were fucking all over the place. All of them were very disappointing. So there's no point. There's no need to lay the boot into guys in a game like that. There was just one that, I was about to say he didn't get off the bus. I'm not sure if the bus left the depot realistically for the Warriors. So hopefully they can bounce back from that one. I'm not going to go too heavy on them. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but it's very rare that you see a team down 30-0 in the first half and get beat by 30 points in the second half. Normally there's a bit of a fight back. Normally the other team lulls out a little bit. The Titans, mate, they saw the Warriors drowning and they put the hose in their mouth. They went at them, which you'd love to see from the Titans, but fuck, for the Wires, very disappointing. And, I know they're still missing a couple of players and whatnot, but mate, I watched a reserve grade Warriors side go to Magic Round and beat Penrith. I mean, that's not an excuse for this Warriors side, and I don't think it'll be an excuse for the coach either because he set a very high standard and this simply doesn't meet it. Very keen to see how they bounce back next week. That's almost the bigger talking point for me. Once again, if I'm a Warriors fan, player, coach, whatever it might be, bury this one in the backyard, move on to the next. All eyes on the Broncos next week for the Wars. Saturday, the middle game had the Roosters 26 points to 8 over the Canterbury Bulldogs in the pissing rain up there at Gosford. Shout out how many people they end up getting here. Can't see a crowd number. It's disappointing. But looked like a pretty decent crowd, all things considered. Look, I thought the Roosters just played to the conditions better. I thought Sammy Walker's short kicking game was unbelievable. Once again, playing like an age 30 half, not an age 21, 22, whatever he is. But his short kicking game, it is second to none in this competition and so unique. It is such a backyard footy kicking game that he's able to bounce off both feet and just drop it on the toe, only put it 2 or 3 metres in front of him, make it sit in the in goals. He's an incredible player, Sam Walker. He's so unorthodox. And yeah, I can't wait to watch where his career goes. And I understand he probably should have got binned or I've heard a few people say sent off, I don't know, for a tackle earlier in the game. He did get sin bin later, which I thought was fair. But he won this game for the Sydney Roosters off his boot pretty much. Just put too much pressure on this Canterbury Bulldogs side. Long kicking game might not be the greatest in the world, but his short kicking game is second to none in this competition, and he's one of the better wet weather footballers in the NRL. I thought that Terrell May was tremendous, played the full 80 minutes. He went the distance, 200-odd run metres, scored a try, 35, 40-odd tackles. Very, very impressive from Terrell May. He is the undisputed bye-round king of Supercoach. Shout out to him. We love to see it. Blake Steep scored on debut, which was fantastic. You saw how excited the boys were for him. Special player, this Blake Steep, and one that is going to have a big future in our game. I have no doubt about it whatsoever. That first try that Dom Young scored, the ball from Joey Manu to Sam Walker down that right edge off the scrum on a perfect Sunday afternoon, dry conditions. That's a great play. In the wet like that, it's unbelievable. Very, very impressive. And I just thought the Roosters, their scrambled defense at different points throughout this game, especially at the back end when they were down players, very, very impressive. Tedesco had a great game. He was just so involved and so busy. I think he had about 10 tackle breaks, did he? 13 tackle breaks, 250 run meters. He was very, very good, Teddy. Daniel Tupu, 200 run meters as well. Very solid. I thought Cheese, he's copped a lot of shit over the last few weeks and a lot of rumours and speculation. Kicked a 40-20, picked his moments, ran really well. A very positive game for Brandon Smith, so shout out to him. JWH, my God. If that's not a guy that wants to win a premiership this year, then leave me out of it. He is so determined at the moment. He's leading this team from the front. And I think I heard one of the Roosters players say post-game that JWH sort of said to him he was going to go after this Canterbury forward pack in this game and go after him. He absolutely gave it to them. A very, very impressive game from JWH. And once again, he's a guy that wants to win a premiership this year. You can see it in his eyes at the moment. So a very interesting watch there. Outside of that, not a heap to touch on. Nat Butcher was solid. Victor Radley, probably a little bit quiet. Moved back into the middle late and had a few more involvements there. But outside of that, nothing else to really touch on. For the Canterbury Bulldogs, I'll tell you what, and I don't know, hindsight, whatever, I don't understand why they played Birdo at centre. I can't make sense of this one. I don't know. It just seems bizarre. For me, I would have moved Jamin Salmon out there. I would have played Curran and Kickout on the edges, and I would have just brought in another middle. If you, and I mean this with all due respect to Matt Burton, but if you give him the opportunity to be passive and not involve himself in a game, he'll tend to take it. He'll tend to sit out on an edge and not get himself as involved. I think part of Matt Burton, and the upside is the incredible ability. The downside is that you sort of have to bring him into games, and putting him at centre in a game like this, it's just not what they needed. He needed to be at 5'8". He needed to be getting plenty of handles of the football, and they worked that out later in the game. But by that point, it was too little too late. I really can't work out what the thinking was there. I'd love to hear from Serraldo and be a fly on the wall with Gus and Serraldo and work out what the actual fucking go there. But for me, I would have just plugged someone out there like a Jamin Salmon who can do a job defensively. Hard to work out. Can't really fathom what the go was there. Skelton. We've called for him to be in first grade for a very, very long time. I know he's not perfect. I know he's got some defensive reads. I know he's got some errors in his game. I get it. But fuck, can you not see the upside in this guy? I would be finding a spot for him in first grade. And if I'm a team, and I hate to use him as an example, the Parramatta Eels, because they've gone and signed Lomax, but for so long, they've been looking for an upside guy in their backline. Surely you take him under your wing and you just back yourselves to sort of level out his game a little bit, because it really isn't that far off. And I think he could well and truly handle himself in first grade. He is a little bit rocks and diamonds, but so are so many NRL players. I don't know. I just can't really, and I don't know if it's an attitude thing. I don't know with Skelton. But fuck, I just think he needs to be in first grade, because he was dynamic the other night. I know he had one error, but scored a try, 240 run meters, one line break, try assist, 5 tackle breaks. And they didn't kick the ball to him either. They worked out pretty quickly. Don't kick the ball to his fucking edge. He was very good. Him and Kiraz, that edge was amazing. Both ran 200 plus meters. So Reid Marnie got through a heap of defensive work, as he always does. Tough as nails. Josh Curran, probably the worst game I've seen him play this year. He had 4 errors, and he got taken from the field, didn't get put back on, played less minutes, which probably deservingly. I thought he was really poor, Josh Curran. It's been a great season for him. But yeah, very disappointing in this one. Bailey Hayward got through a stack of work as well. This Hapoi that comes off the bench, he's got a little bit about him as well. Good to see Kicks back in the side, playing big minutes. Look, Canterbury, I still have them as a top 8 side. I'm not ruling them out after this one performance. They're missing a couple of key guys. I thought that team list-wise, they made a few poor decisions, as I said. But I think they just came up against the Roosters side that was red hot. And personally, I think they just made too many errors coming out of their own end. That was sort of the end of the story for me. Coming out of their own end, they just made too many errors. And if you're going to give a team like the Roosters with your Walkers, your Teddys, your Manus, these sort of guys, opportunities like that, they're going to take it with both hands. So I think the Bulldogs, they were their own worst enemies in this game. And I think missing and not having a genuine out-and-out sort of halfback. I know Toby Sexton's a good halfback, but I don't think he's quite at the level of a guy like Sam Walker to be able to really take advantage of wet weather footy. In saying that, it's hard for any halfback to dominate when your team just doesn't hold the fucking football. But I felt like Sam Walker was the difference in this game. His kicking game was just so dominant. So, move on to the next for Canterbury. I do think they were their own worst enemy at certain points. But I think you also just need to appreciate that this Roosters side, they probably are just a top 4 team. They're a good footy side. As much as they've been hit and miss the last few years, this year, the Roosters look to be the goods, and I think we sort of just need to accept that. But yeah, Canterbury, I'm not selling any stocks or anything like that. I think Stephen Crichton's incredibly important to this side as well, and without him, I think they did struggle without their leader. Last game of the week, for me anyway, the Rabbitohs, 14 points to 0 over the Manly Sea Eagles. I don't take a stack for both teams. If I'm coach of the South Sydney Rabbitohs, stoked. From where we were a month ago to winning games, fantastic. We did it without Latrell and Cam Murray. Heaps of positives to take there. Other guys stood up in this game. We went up, we played a Manly side, missing a heap of troops who were really gritty, and we still found a way to get it done. Sweet. Take the 2 points, move on to the next, get your rep players back into this side, which will change everything completely. Positive to take from South Sydney, but I don't read into it too much. Jai Gray was very good. I think Keon Kolomantangi, since he's moved into the middle, he has been a revelation. I think that when Cam Murray's back in this side full time, I think I'd put the 8 or the 10 on Keon Kolomantangi's back. By that point, hopefully Jai Arrow will sort of be getting back to full fitness as well. And then South Sydney can have a real crack this year. I thought that Tane Milne, I thought he got through a heap of work as well. He was really solid in this game. Damien Cook was fantastic. Keon Kolomantangi, as we said, he's playing at a level that could see him get picked for Origin in Game 3 if we have injuries or if we lose and there's changes. And I think you can see, you've seen over the last month that Latrell Mitchell was pissed off he didn't get picked for Game 1. And I think you can say that Keon Kolomantangi, who, remember, he was in the side Game 3 last year, wasn't really on the radar seemingly, or wasn't spoken about as much. And I think you can see that's sort of shit Keon a little bit, as it should. And I think he's played his best footy since coming back. Liam LeBlanc, debutant off the bench, shout out to him. Achieving a dream there last night, which was great to see. Davey Moali was solid. Cody and Jack, good without being great, to be honest with you. I thought Cody Walker, his timing was a little bit off at different points last night, but did enough to get the job done there for the South Sydney Rabbitohs. So once again, I don't read into this one all that much for the Bunnies guys. I think they just take the win. They move on to the next. They get their stars back and they're focused on next week. But from where they were a month or two ago, to be winning games without Cam Murray, without Latrell, granted against the Seagull side, missing a heap of troops, but they found a way to win. It looked like they couldn't fucking find it looked like there was a world where they could win games of football not that long ago. So credit to them. Seabold and the Seagulls, you lose 14-0. You're missing all your star players. Ruben Garrick, you're missing Daly Cherry Evans, you're missing Ola Kawati, you're still without your hooker, Tommy Turbo, Jake Travojevic. I mean, there's a lot going against the Manly Seagulls at the moment. And at the 78th minute, it was 8-0 against the South Sydney Rabbitohs, who missing players as well, but Cody Walker, Jack Wyden, Damien Cook, Keon Kolomantangi, like a lot of Alex Johnson, like a lot of stars in that side still. The Seagulls had to essentially play, with one ball player. Tommy Talau did his absolute best jumping in there a little bit, getting more involved. But I think if I'm Anthony Seibold, I walk away from this game and go, okay, no need to go over tape. There was different combos, different everything going on everywhere. But you know what? My team fucking held in there in defence. They bit down on the mouth guard and they held in this game, which is, I think, all you can really ask for during these rounds. And you just hope that a couple of bounces fall your way and whatnot. Look, if I'm Anthony Seibold, I'll walk away from this reasonably happy. And I think you could see in the press conference last night, he was reasonably happy. If the Seagulls, if they have a culture that is built around defence like that, you put DCE and you put Olakawatu, Garrick, Turbo, Gerbo, you're not going to lose too many games of football with those sort of guys and with that sort of attitude. So you have a look at like the walking wounded last night, like Toff Sipley, Corey Waddell. It was very evident they were injured last week. Did really well last night, played tough. Jake Simkin got through a stack of work. He's been a nice guy to bring into the side. Nathan Brown, he's really taken on a leadership role as well. Congratulations to the debutants as well. I said during the week it was James's debut. It actually wasn't. He's played for the Tigers. I had that wrong. But Navale, who came off the bench as well, I haven't seen him before. It's the first time seeing him. 30 minutes, did pretty well, I thought. Almost 100 run meters from 9 runs, very solid. The Seagulls, I really don't read too much into this. It is what it is. It's buy-around footy. You're missing a stack of troops, a heap of guys out, whether it be origin, injury, concussion, whatever the fuck it is. Probably had their 5 best players out and managed to hang in this game. Defended well. Take out the last 2 minutes. It's an 8-0 game. I think you walk away from this one pretty happy as a Manly Seagulls fan. You move on to the next. Guys, that is our rapid review for round 16. As I said, I had to record this one twice because we forgot to press record the first time. The one thing we didn't mention was in the Warriors game, the Roger Tuivasa Shek Simbin. And maybe we did mention it. I've filmed this twice now, so I can't remember. But I don't think it was a sin bin. I think it was very, very harsh and a bit of a dodgy call, to be honest with you. But once again, I don't think it's the biggest problem for the Wires. The game was well and truly gone by then. It didn't affect the result at all. But yeah, how that's a sin bin, I don't really know. Guys, today's Rapid Review is brought to you by the Roo Crew. The link is in the description. Come and join us. Have a look around in there. $2 a week, $8 a month. Pretty cheap in there. Come and have a look. You get all your extra Supercoach stats every single week. The Supercoach group chat, all of our exclusive content in there. Instead of just listening to the podcast, you can listen to the video as well. Get your questions read out in our Q&As. An absolute stack more in there for you guys. So make sure you come and join the Roo Crew. The link is in the description.